Hello, we are back. This is Whitney K with Uno Mas Podcast, and today we're talking all about hashtags. Are they even relevant in 2024? Not gonna lie, y'all, I'm struggling today. I'm a little tired. I could probably take on narcolepsy right now and just straight up pass out and fall asleep. I am tired. So I have my coffee here and we're going to try to get through this without falling asleep halfway through. I'm just being real. I don't know why I'm so tired. I might be hormonal. I don't know what's going on with me, but we're here for it. Okay. So hashtags in 2024. Yes, they are still relevant. Yes, they are still very, very important to you getting discovered on social media platforms. However, we are seeing a shift in how they are being used. Kind of. Let me just preface that with a kind of, and we'll get into it, okay? So, I would love to know if you are someone that actively uses hashtags, if you wrote off hashtags, like you're adamant about not using them, if you've even applied different strategies for hashtags, what has worked, what hasn't worked. I want to know all the things. I would love to hear from you because I'm still compiling data on this and I'm probably going to come back later in a couple months and retouch on this and see how people are using them in 2024 and seeing if the information that I've gathered and that I've researched is still relevant in the next few months and is actually being applied. So, let's start with where the heck did hashtags kind of originate and who basically stole the overall use and like trumped everybody with the use of hashtags. Well, hashtags was first really kind of used on Twitter. People would use them to categorize posts and topically address posts when using them on Twitter. Now, Instagram kind of picked them up and has become like the one place that everybody knows, uses, and loves hashtags. And then other social media platforms like Pinterest and LinkedIn have adopted the use of hashtags really and simply for the same exact reason, and that is to categorize and topic base your post. So people are still really using hashtags for that specific reason. We have to be mindful though of AI. Okay. Ever since AI came out and platforms are using AI, whether it's the actual social platform itself or third party integrated platforms that could be social media schedulers, that could be Google for their web based crawlers, that could be ChatGTP for pooling and scouring the internet to generate content for you if you're using platforms like that. We have to be mindful in the fact that AI is now incorporated in these platforms. And how AI is working is AI is wanting to use fewer hashtags because it really goes off of keywords. So SEO. So AI doesn't really use hashtags in the way that we as the users are familiar with using them. However, it's not to say that AI does not use hashtags. AI just works better with fewer hashtags being used. So, that is where a strategy comes into play. And that is where, there's all this debate on should you use them, should you not use them, how many should you use, you know, what types of hashtags do you use? Are there banned hashtags? Are there not banned hashtags? Just like, let's calm down. Okay. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. And we're all going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out and realize that no matter what it is that you're doing, there's no right way and there's no wrong way. Could there be a better way? Absolutely. But that is where I'm not going to tell you what that way is. You're going to try and test different methods that you hear from me and that you hear from other people, and you're going to put them into use and you're going to see what works best for you because your audience is not my audience and my audience is not your audience. We are cultivating an audience based on our own activity and our own interests and our own doings that our results are going to differ from other people's results, and that is okay. So let's talk about each individual platform first and what they recommend as far as hashtags, because then that will help us kind of curve our strategy a little bit and maybe set the foundation. So Instagram themselves, and let me just, can I just rewind? I'm going to do my own sound effect here. Let's rewind a little bit because as I was doing this research, I will tell you that we can't go based off of like what people say. Because there were multiple blogs that I was reading that in the beginning part of the blog, they would say, Instagram has come out and said this. And then you go through the blog and you're reading the rest of it. If anybody, gives blogs that amount of time, I did. I would read through the rest of it. And then later on, they would contradict their original statement on what the platform says and say, we've seen through our testing that this is what works. So it's like, then you get in your head, well, do I use what you're saying? Because you're telling me that Instagram's telling me one thing, but then you're telling me that your study tells me another thing. So like, who do I really take as credible? Because shouldn't I trust the platform or should I trust you? And then at the end of the day, you're sitting there really flipping confused. And it's just like, why did I even start reading and researching this in the first place? Because I'm no better off than what I came in. Like, that's literally how I felt when I was reading some of this stuff. So I just need you to know that what I am going to tell you is based on what the platforms recommend themselves. Now, you can choose to do that, or you can choose to do really whatever the hell you want. And we're just going to talk about it. So, Instagram themselves recommends anywhere from 3 to 5 hashtags. Now, Whitney, why would we use only 3 to 5 hashtags when the platform allows us to use up to 30? I don't know. I I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that that's what the platform recommends. Now, there are studies, blogs out there that say that you get better reach and exposure by using anywhere from 8 to 13. But the platform, Adam Mizrahi came out and said that 3 to 5 hashtags of this is the sweet spot. Weird. Like, I don't know what to do with that, but okay, I'm going to stick with the 3 to 5 because I'm going to go with what the platform recommends because I want to grow on the platform, not by the voice of other people, right? So I'm going to stick with what the platform says. Facebook recommends 2 to 5 hashtags. LinkedIn recommends 3 to 5. TikTok recommends 4 to 5, and YouTube recommends 3 to 5. So fewer hashtags, what I'm gathering here, equals more reliable categorization. Oh my gosh, I just butchered my own notes, my own words. We're going to edit that part out. Fewer hashtags equals more reliable self categorization. Did I nail it? I think I did. Okay. But, anyways, you get my point. Fewer hashtags, better categorization of those hashtags. Okay. But here's the problem. And I'm sure you've seen this a million times. People will write posts, they'll create content, but they'll use, like, for example, we're in February, Valentine's Day is coming up. I could sit here and talk about some type of business strategy, but use the hashtag Valentine's Day that doesn't even apply to the content that I'm actually writing. But the only reason I'm using the hashtag is because I'm thinking that it's relevant, it's trending, it's topical, it's seasonal, it's going to hit, I'm going to get more views, I'm going to get more exposure, and I'm going to get more reach. When ultimately, that is not how we should be using hashtags at all. Okay, at all. We need to be using categorical hashtags that are relevant to our content and hashtags that are relevant to our audience. So relevancy is key. If we're not sitting back and thinking about what are our, and this is where SEO kind of comes into play, because SEO is very, very, very important when it comes to our content, now more so than ever before. But if we're not sitting here thinking about what are our content buckets, I did a training on this already. What are our content buckets? And then what keywords would people be searching for in if they were looking for content that was relevant to that content bucket? And then specifically, if you are creating content as a creator in one of those content buckets, for me, whether it's branding, social media, business streamlining, sales and marketing, digital marketing, whatever, if I am using words like Sharpay and everything about dogs, and it doesn't even relate to the content that I'm producing and putting out there, it is not relevant. I am not relevant. It is not clicking with the platform. The platform's going to overlook me, and it's not even going to matter the effort that I put forth in searching for hashtags that aren't even relevant to the content, because the content that I'm putting isn't even relevant to the hashtags that I am using. So relevancy is key. Different hashtags are also very, very important. And I love streaming my hashtags across 5 different categories. So you've got location-based hashtags. Do not use hashtags if you're in a coffee shop here in Florida and hashtag coffee shops out in LA, because that's where you just want to be right now. Like, it's all great that you fantasize about being somewhere else, but use hashtags where you actually currently are. The second one is branded hashtags. I love coming up with brand specific hashtags, especially when I'm working with a new client. If they don't personally have their own hashtags yet, or have created hashtags that are branded to their brand, then that is definitely something that we work on for them. And so I encourage you, if you haven't thought about branded hashtags for yourself and your brand, to start considering that and using that in a lot of your content. This is another thing too, is when you can get your clients and your customers to use your hashtags or your users on social media, it helps boost and grow that hashtag. So and that's why a lot of, you know, companies, that if they're doing events or campaigns, they'll use campaign specific hashtags around that entire event or around that entire campaign to get people to use it so that they can track and follow the results and the use of that hashtag. So it's really good for data capturing and feedback and measuring results that way. But anyways, I digress. The third thing is industry specific. So if you're using hashtags that are relevant to your industry, okay? Now you can flip that a little bit. If you are targeting a specific industry, this is where it gets into audience specific. If you're targeting a specific industry or speaking about a specific industry in relation to the content that you're posting, it is absolutely okay to use industry related hashtags to that specific industry. All right. The fourth thing is community. So, this is your audience. I want you to think about, who is my audience? What are their interests? What are they doing? Who are they specifically? And use hashtags that are relevant to your audience. And then the fifth thing is descriptive. So, things that could hashtags that could describe your scenery. I could use a hashtag Samsung Q9U mic, and I might put that in my content if I wanted to, because I am using a Samsung Q9U mic. I could use hashtag podcast, because that's very general, but I could use a hashtag podcast or hashtag Uno Mas podcast. There's a branded hashtag. I could use hashtag the Whitney K. That is also a branded hashtag. I could do hashtag, hashtagging tips, or hashtag strategy, or hashtag strategy for entrepreneurs. So that is where I'm getting into that is where I'm getting into long tailwind hashtags. So this is where SEO comes very, very handy. If you're not familiar with SEO or keywords for blogs, for content, it's really words that are going to be searched by people on the internet, that will be dribbled throughout your content, whether it be the headline, the actual written copy, through the hashtags themselves, through the meta descriptions, the description. Like, there's so many places that we can use keywords in our content to help crawlers on the internet pull our content as being a relevant source for people to go to when they're searching for content that's relevant to the content that we're putting out. So keywords are something that you definitely, definitely, definitely want to be putting into your content, but those keywords can be streamed together into a single hashtag to help categorize your content better for these platforms. So you can use more generalized hashtags like hashtag podcast, but you have to consider how many other people are using that hashtag. So then the question of use and volume comes into play. When you start typing out a hashtag on Pinterest, on pretty much Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere, you will start to see a number associated with that hashtag. And that number is the volume. How many posts are being made or have been made with this specific hashtag? Now, picture yourself throwing your marble, which is your piece of content, into a bucket of another, of other marbles. And the one bucket has 5 million marbles in it. And you're asking people to discover your piece of content in a bucket of 5 million marbles. That's like a needle in a haystack. Good luck. It's going to take you a while. And you're lucky if it even gets to the top, if it's laying on top. And then maybe the next marble that you throw in is into a bucket of 5,000, 10,000, even 50,000 marbles. Now, what is the chance and the likelihood of somebody discovering your marble in that bucket versus sorry. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. When I get tongue tied, like it cracks me up because in my mind is working so much faster than my mouth that like my mind like laughs at me. I don't know. Is that psycho? I hope not. But I think it's so funny when I get tongue tied because then I imagine like what was the face that I just gave? Like, anyways, okay. So if you throw your marble into that other bucket and it doesn't have as many marbles, you're more likely to become discovered. So you want to consider volume, okay? Volume and the number of uses that a hashtag is being used is going to be very, very important. Now, that doesn't mean I'm trying to discourage you from using generalized hashtags ever. Sometimes and on some platforms, they can be good in strategically using higher volume, medium volume, and low volume hashtags, along with differentiating your hashtags as far as the 5 different things that I was talking about, whether it be descriptive, whether it be branded, location based, industry based, whatever. Having a strategy in place where you kind of tweak and play around with those things is going to help you find what is the best strategy for you. Now, here's the kicker though. Before I go into kind of like the strategy and how we could be using hashtags and things I want you to consider trying out, I'm going to say something that's not going to make a lot of people happy. And that's the fact that you're going to have a different hashtag strategy on different platforms. Now, this is why I want to encourage you who sat back and was like, oh, really? If you're thinking that, then you're probably on so many platforms and you're already spreading yourself so thin that content creation isn't even enjoyable for you at the moment. It's actually work. And even though content creation for many of us is work, it should still be fun and enjoyable. So I'm going to encourage you. I'm derailing a minute on this topic because this is so important. I was where you were. I was overwhelmed and tired and overproducing content and underproducing it at the same time because I was exhausted from creating it or generating any ideas that I had to take a step back. And this might be where you are. Think about a platform or two that you can go all in on, that you can give it your all. You can be the best that you can be. You've done the research, you've studied the algorithm, you have studied, other creators on the platform, how they do it, how they don't do it, and where you fit in that kind of scene, right? Because if we can do something well, then we can do it great. But if we're trying to do a lot of things well, we're going to barely be doing them good. Okay. So I just really, really, really want to encourage you to just pump the brakes a little bit if that seems overwhelming. So different hashtag strategy on different platforms. So I want you to understand before I go into the strategy here a little bit of the purpose of hashtags. So, the difference between hashtags and keywords, because two or both of them are very, very important to your content. Hashtags are meant to categorize your content, where keywords are intended to optimize it. Hear me when I say that again. Hashtags are used to categorize your content. Keywords are meant to optimize it. So you want to make sure that you are putting both efforts into a single piece of content in order for you to get more reach, more engagement, and to be discovered more across the internet and these social media platforms. So, what is some strategy methods that have been talked about, that have been argued about, that I can touch on really quick before we wrap this up? Well, Audience specific and relevant hashtags is the number one most important thing. So sit down when you're creating your content and instead of just aimlessly putting out hashtags and not really thinking about what you're putting, look back at what you wrote in the copy and think about what keyword or phrase have you put in the copy that you can turn into a hashtag. Number one, that starts with relevancy. Number two, you want to really think about the audience that you're speaking to. If you haven't already done some audience discovery, I highly recommend it because once you can narrow down your audience and tap into the hashtags that they're using and even follow the hashtags that they're using, you can then see what hashtags are their interest or what spark their interest and what they're using and what they're following so that you can start incorporating those same hashtags, if relevant to your content, into your content. The second thing is different volume hashtags. I'm going to reiterate that again. There are many hashtags that are very general that are being, I want to say, overly used to some extent. Those are really high volume hashtags. Then there's the medium volume hashtags that are anywhere from like, I don't know, we'll say 100,000 all the way up to like 5, 6, 700,000 ish. Okay. That's like the medium volume. We could probably stretch that a little bit more, but we'll stick within there. And then the low volume is anything under 100,000 uses. So you want to make sure that you're differentiating your hashtags between those volumes and those amount of uses, because then you're tapping into every single bucket, right? Like you're hitting the major, you're hitting the minors, but you're also hitting the ones that are barely there that are really, really niche specific. The third thing is, should you be posting your hashtags in the copy or the comments of your post? Ooh, we could sit here for a minute, couldn't we? How many different opinions have you heard on this? I've heard them all. So I will tell you that a lot of the platforms recommend that the hashtags stay in the actual copy of the post. You get more immediate reach and exposure rather than those milliseconds or seconds that it takes you to copy and paste them in the first comment. But either way is really no problem at all. You're still going to get exposure. So try and test this one out and see what works best for you. I think it was like, and I'm going to get the statistic wrong, so don't quote me on it. I believe it was like around 80% of users on social media platforms do include them in the actual copy caption of the post. There was very few percentage of people that take the time to put them in the comments. So again, there's no problem with that, but just try it. The platforms recommend in the actual caption. And then something else to consider, which I read a few blogs and was doing my research about this, and I found this really interesting, but it actually makes complete sense. And I've done this before myself, but then I stopped. But considering the placement of your hashtags in the captions. So instead of what we're so accustomed to, putting them all down at the bottom or the end of the caption, which is perfectly fine, you can still do that. But also maybe uh how do I say this? Intertwining them, I guess, if you want to say, into the sentences as you're speaking in your written copy. So if I was talking about, this video and I took a snippet from this video and I would say, have you ever struggled with putting in effective, and then this is where I could do hashtag strategy together, and that could be my sentence. So it's really hard to use an example when the topic is hashtag, but I'm trying to tell you what to hashtag. Does that make sense? I don't even know. Anyways, all you want to do is basically use the hashtags in the middle of your sentences. I've heard that that is an effective method, so I'm going to put that one to use a little bit more. And then to have a different strategy for each platform, and make sure you are researching your results. So you can absolutely research and follow hashtags themselves by using tools and platforms out there. And if you're using a platform and a tool like Planoly or Later or Plan That or Metrical, and you are paying to schedule and plan out your content, then they do have analytical reports in there that can help you see what hashtags are and are not producing good results for you, and ones that are tapping into your audience and ones that are not, ones that are getting reach and exposure, ones that are not, ones that are generating engagement over reach and impressions, or impressions over engagement and reach. And there's a lot of different research and metrics that you can gather, data that you can gather from your hashtag efforts. But it takes you not just posting and ghosting, but posting and actually looking at what is and is not performing. If you're not paying attention to what your audience and what your people are liking, then how do you expect to grow in any capacity? I will be honest with you, I suck. I suck at checking my data. I suck at it. But I've gotten really good at doing it in the past year because I know how important it is. You can't grow without understanding your data. And I don't know what I was thinking for the longest time, but like, I just thought if you create, that's just not how it works. Like we have to understand our data. So make sure you're measuring. I would do it for everybody else but myself, but make sure you're measuring your data and you're looking at the results and what your hashtag efforts are doing for you. But essentially, in conclusion, hashtags, yes, they are still relevant today. However, they are being used differently. Fewer is more impactful, and you want to look at them more as relevant keyword specific hashtags that and understanding the difference between keywords and hashtags, but using your keywords to basically generate your hashtags so that you can better categorize your posts so that the internet can find your content, and people that are searching for content specific stuff will see your content when it comes up in search results because you are doing this in a more effective and strategical way. So I hope you found value in this. I would love to know how you are using hashtags in your strategy this year, or if you have said, I forget, I'm going to forget hashtags. I'm not using them. They frustrate me. I'm over it. I don't want to do it. Then that's perfectly fine too. But for those of us that are asking the question of whether or not we should still be using them, the answer is yes, we should. And that is all, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day, and I'll be back next week.